r/AskReddit by Reddit and chill. What screams I live on daddy's money? People who claim to be financially independent but have never had a job. Independent from financially making any contribution. I cannot go out tomorrow. I have to work. Just tell your boss that you want to do it. Don't be afraid of him. Who does he think he is? It happened to me. He works in his father's company. Wow, that's ridiculous. Even fathers who employ their sons usually don't put up with that. A past best friend who doesn't really work. Has never made more than $100k per year. His wife who hasn't worked in 6 years and worked as a scheduler for maybe 3-4 years prior to having kids. They are currently building a $3 million home. Oh yay. Her dad owns an oil company. Wish I didn't really have to work to not quite make 100k. When they don't understand financial restrictions. There have been a few people I've met who never really thought about not having enough money to do something. Anything from fixing a car to going out to eat. If you say you can't do something because you're broken, they respond with, just put it on your credit card. They are likely a candidate. It's one banana, Michael. What could it cost? $10? I used to know a girl who always complained about handouts and lazy poor people and pointless charities. I found out the Mustang she drove was a gift from her father. Her parents paid her rent. And her high-paying job was at her mom's company. She honestly didn't see any of that as charity. She got the car, job, and apartment because she's so amazing and deserves it. Obviously. God, I absolutely hate people like that. People who don't work for what they have never worked a day in their life should not even speak out about people living on the streets. They would be on the streets if it wasn't for their parents. I used to work with a guy years ago. We were both in our mid-20s. And both working in junior white-collar jobs. Making around the same pay. So while it was okay money, it wasn't amazing. This guy was buying his third home in as many years. Like. He already owned 2, lived in one, rented out the other, nice houses, and was buying a third and keeping the other 2 to build a mini property portfolio. When I told him that my wife, who also worked a white-collar job, and I couldn't afford a down payment, he responded, just ask your family for the money. That's what I do. When I responded that they didn't have the kind of money, and B, even if they did, we weren't comfortable doing that. He just couldn't understand it. He was visibly confused. Because it was outside his little bubble. I had a school friend who got enough for a deposit on a house when he was 15. Around £20,000 from a dead relative. He got one and rented it out. The rent covered the mortgage and a bit extra and stayed living with his parents. When he was 19 he had enough for a second house to rent out. And when he was 23 a third, and so on. Now he owns his own home outright and does not really need to work at 30ish. Was good for him to get that money so young. And I would be lying if I said I was not jealous. But he invested it damn well. An expensive first car as soon as you're old enough to drive. My first thought too. Honestly. Not even an expensive car. Just a new car. New cars cost $20k plus these days. And you can get sensible used cars much cheaper. For someone to get a brand new car off the lot for their first car, that's the parents buying it. An expensive car is just even more obvious. An old co-worker of mine, who was a super nice guy, never made any higher than $40k. He was able to buy a house while his wife stayed home with his son. Got a brand new Lexus every 2 years or so. Posts pictures of him on traveling on planes all the time in first class and or a private jet. His first year at work he'd talk to us like all of this common. But I think he learned pretty quickly to keep quiet about his privileged life. Was this because of his parents or because he just goes into mega debt? I, 30F, just started to date a guy. Not too long after I lost a job. I took a roommate in to help me pay the rent and he got mad. Said that he will be less comfortable because of the privacy and couldn't understand that I put money before the relationship. I said that I will not spit on $500 month and that I won't be able to pay. His solution. Ask money from my parents and wait a couple of months till he moves in and saves me. After a fight. I mostly discover that he still lived in his parents' home at 30. His whole shtick about travel is my philosophy suddenly seemed less cool. I broke up that week. Travel is my philosophy. Expensive holidays and shitty job, it's one of the biggest red flag for 30s. They live on daddy money. Or even worse. They don't understand what adult life is. No plans for future savings. Their goal is only the next vacation. Next on House Hunters. I'm a freelance basket weaver. My wife is a kindergarten teacher. We're looking for a rustic house outside of Austin on a $5 million budget. Every San Francisco episode is this. Not understanding the schedule restrictions due to having a part-time job. Or not being able to understand why you can't stay out late because you have to get up for work at 5 AM for a job that doesn't pay enough to comp for the gas it would take to drive all over town all night. You know those YouTubers who casually drive supercars around to review them and really it's like a homebrew reality show? Yeah, them. I like to hear about all the quirks and features though. Had an employee once who was fresh out of grad school. Paid him $60K. He drove a brand new $120K Mercedes. Lived in a $4K month penthouse. Wore all bespoke clothing. etc etc. His salary was definitely a blip on his financial radar. It was wild. I want an Oompa Loompa now. Before you know it, you've poisoned yourself because you've eaten experimental product you were strictly warned not to touch. They just got a prime spot on the Slytherin Quidditch team and everyone else on the team just happens to have the latest Nimbus brooms. Wait till his father hears about this. Your first car at 16 is a Mercedes or any luxury cars. You are 27, jobless, still live at your parents and show off your expensive purses, shoes, clothes and lifestyle on Instagram. Duck. Dude. I wish I had parents whose house I could live at. I'd save up a down payment on a house in no time. And if a man slaves his life away in order to own a house, why is it that our culture makes it so the children cannot stay there and reaping the benefits? Families should really stick together, assuming they're not shitty and abusive. I live in a relatively high income community. And I'll see teenagers with Rolexes and Aurus Jeeps joyriding on the main road. It's no fun to be near them. Footless Jeeps? Question mark? My car broke down last winter, so I had to take the bus to and from work. A younger co-worker asked me why not just buy a new one. I told her, yeah, because I just have new car money to pull out of my ass. She responded with, you don't even have $5,000 saved up? No I don't. At a job where I make $2,200 a month and my rent is $1,200. And I have 2 kids. How is that possible? Why don't you just buy more money? Walks into the fanciest restaurant in Manhattan. Orders the most expensive things there are on the menu. Only takes a bite or 2. Monsters. Well, at the fanciest restaurants in Manhattan you only get a bite or 2. Being in college without a job while also getting the latest iPhone every year and never even thinking about scholarships or student loans. Most of that depends on the country you're in. Not the iPhone though. I have a friend who told me he has distant cousins who live off a trust fund that pays them 10 grand a month each and they're having trouble getting by. Why don't you just not take out student loans? For a period of in the early 2000s I lived in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Rents in some parts of Williamsburg were and still are ridiculously expensive. I couldn't afford to live in the vicinity of the cool area, otherwise known as Bedford Avenue. Instead I roomed with 5 other people in a converted 3-bedroom apartment about a 15-20 minute walk away from Bedford. Every so often I'd find myself at a cafe on Bedford Avenue and see all the faux starving artists sitting there looking like they'd just rolled out of bed for hours on end. It was clear they didn't have anywhere they needed to be. Rents for a 1BR near Bedford were often north of $2,000 a month. And that was in 2001-2002. No way in hell you're 18-22 years old and paying your own bills working part-time if you live there. This is an interesting question. Most of us turn to the negative effects of having a financially abundant childhood. Entitlement, narcissism, etc. I came from a pretty financially solid family that hooked me the duck up as a child. along with my brother and sister, and we all have very different attitudes towards money and people. My sister is pretty quiet and reserved, and money isn't really a part of her personality. But she's extremely tight with her money. Buying the cheapest options. Looking for deals in every scenario. Buying stuff she doesn't even like just because it's the cheaper choice. It's strange because she's never really had a reason to do this. She's never struggled financially. She's like that quirky aunt type that cuts coupons. My brother is your stereotypical rich kid. He thinks money is status. Status equals personal worth. And he treats people according to this perceived worth. I've heard him say things like, "Do you know who I am? I'll have your ducking job. You aren't shit." To customer service employees. I feel bad for him because he's entitled. But legitimately blind to it. IDK. He's a damn alien. And I'm your stereotypical fake Zen money isn't what really matters type. I try to resist financially temptation. Though I still have it. I had a minimalist phase and all that. I'm the "you can't take it with you when you die" guy. I don't actually say that quote. I'm not at all frugal though. I'll buy dumb shit all the time. I just don't like money. How it makes people act. What it makes people do. But it's unavoidable. So I can't say what screams I live on my parents' money. Cause I have personally lived on my parents' money. So has my brother and my sister. We all act completely different. You're one self-aware mofo. Yo. I respect that. Not understanding the value of the dollar. Example. When my best friend and I were World of Warcraft addicts in middle school through college. There would be times where I would run out of money for my sub. It was damn expensive for a kid like myself buying my own way using prepaid time cards. My best friend would say, "Oh, just do what I do and charge it to your dad's credit card. That way you can just pay by year and not worry about it." He wasn't being a prick. That's just the only way he knew. He had no idea what it was like to have to work hard for something so simple. WoW wasn't cheap, man. $15 a month. It's a banana. Michael. What could it cost? $10? Not caring if you lose your job. Because you were hired out of nepotism in the first place. When you are posing with money. Watches etc in high school. Absolutely rich daddy's girl. When someone boasts fiscal responsibility and bootstraps as the reason for their success. It's really easy to take career risks when you have a trust fund to fall back on. Work becomes a money-making game at that point. This. Plus, you get better assignments at most jobs if you have family money. You're assumed to be there because of your work ethic. Rather than because you have to. Also, if your parents are people your bosses are afraid of, that will help you get a career more than anything else. Most rich kids have no idea how much of a benefit it is to have air support. A lot of it's implicit. It's not like their parents actually call their bosses and demand special treatment for their kids. That would be humiliating for everyone. So much as it's just understood that some people, the ones whose daddies can call in airstrikes, are to get better than the normal corporate treatment, grunt work and neglect. Not working, having no desire to work as an adult. Not having the basic understanding of working equals money equals food life, etc. Early 20s masseurs living in a 300k, 900 square foot flat downtown. Always has the latest clothes. Drives a Beamer. Has been a masseuse for all of 3 years. Never went to college. That sounds more like someone is an escort than living on daddy's dime. Maybe a sugar daddy's dime. F1 driver Lance Stroll. To even have a chance at F1 you have to be pretty well off to begin with. Kids need to be skilled at driving and karting is not cheap. Being in college and frequently bragging about and posting on their social media all the partying that they do and trips that they take. While seemingly never going to class. Income disparity really beach smacked me when I got out of school. When all of my friends graduated and moved on. Most of us hung around the city we went to school near. I had an engineering degree and was making more than most of my friends. But still living in a major US city on an entry-level salary. Times were lean. But whatever. Each weekend though, I was somehow the only person who could barely afford gas or had to stay in because I didn't have bar money. I'd get little nuggets of wisdom from my friends sometimes that I needed to be smarter with my money. But these guys were living in the same shitty apartments as me, going to the same bars whilst somehow making less. It confused the duck out of me. They got vacations, nice dinners in town and bought new cars. Meanwhile I was out earning them by like $10,000 per year and eating ducking Hot Pockets for dinner 5 nights a week and driving a beat up old Hyundai with a savings account balance of 0. A few years later I was talking to someone in that group and he said something to the effect of, yeah, everyone's parents take care of them after they get out of school. It's what they're supposed to do. Then it clicked. I'm 35 now and it's so painfully obvious when I see the same brand of 22-year-old kids around town ordering the most expensive thing on the menu. That shit's daddy money and he's acting like he earned it. Ducking, like and subscribe.